Yeah, if I could get your attention for a minute, that's like everybody. This is my 19th year participating in Family House. I've had the privilege of being to a lot of auctions and auctioning with my good friend Fritz and my good friend Greg. This is my first time without David. We all know what an extraordinary character David was and is, and how many tens of millions of dollars he raised for charity. And I was so proud to stand by David's side at so many auctions, probably somewhere north of 75. And I think I introduced David to the Family House. He was a dear friend. He was filled with energy, enthusiasm, charisma, humor. But before we start the fund in need, I'd like to tell you another David that you probably don't know, and that's the David that visited alongside my wife Ann and myself burn centers, cancer wards, inner city schools, research facilities, not because he had to, but because he cared. And we stood side by side with some of our most suffering and most underserved humans, and David cared. And David shed a tear for those who suffered. And through his magnificent auction capabilities, raised tens of millions of dollars for them and loved them even more than the money he raised. I feel like David's by my side tonight and by our side, and his flame will never go out in me. The Family House means a lot to me. I visited out there a number of times, but there was a transition year. And that's when I entered the Family House, and there was a young boy curled up on a sofa, and his beautiful mom looking down, somewhat helpless, to try and alleviate his pain, alleviate the challenges that he was going through. And I went over to his side, and he wasn't doing it all well, and I tried to talk to him, I tried to be his friend, and it wasn't working. But I did get his eye, and I showed him a little bit of magic. And his eyes opened, and a smile came on his face. He was suffering from neuroblastoma. At that period of time, it was more than 70% fatal. He was going through treatment that is extraordinary, to include a bone marrow transplant, to include radiation, to include chemotherapy. He was termed as in stage 4. We had a lot of communications over the next weeks, and I nicknamed him Magic. And I knew that he would survive the odds. For those of you who were here last year and the year before, Emily read a poem that she and Hannah had written together, their home being Alaska. Hannah couldn't make it because she was in intensive care at Children's, but she was the guest the year before and sat on the stage by my side. And her sister Emily read a wonderful poem that the two girls had written, and it was about playing in the snow, and they were the two most beautiful young girls in the world. And it was a beautiful and perfect world, and it was a world without cancer. I went out to visit Hannah, at UC Med Center the week after the auction, and I was by her bedside two days before she passed. The Family House gave so much comfort to that family. They were just down at the Family House last week. Hannah passed a year ago. That doesn't always happen, but the comfort that they gave that family and the support that they gave that family was absolutely extraordinary. And now I'd like to call Magic up to the stage and have him make a comment or two about the support that Family House gave he and his family.
All right, so I took a public speaking class about two semesters ago, so bear with me. It's a lot bigger than my classroom. So, for me and my family house was a home away from home. When I was going through treatment for my brother right here and my parents, it was their home, it was where they stayed. And then in the future years, when I go back for checkups, go back to get x-rays, blood tests, I would occasionally stay there. There's a few things that I really remember that I loved about the family house. People there, they understand you're going through hard times, so they're trying to make it the best experience possible for you. I remember the refrigerators and freezers always had a huge gallon of ice cream on every floor, no matter what. That's where I'd always go. I remember I'd always have ice cream. Another thing me and my brother always looked forward to was they always had video games. We didn't have video games in our house, so we always looked forward to video games. I believe we played some snowboarding game in the basement. And one of the other things, they're always giving. There's always donations coming in. One time we went and we were curious if there was any Giants tickets available, and I think my dad asked, and they were like, yeah, we'll see what we can do. And a couple of minutes later, they said, yeah, we got 4 tickets for you. We don't know how good the seats are. We show up to the park, they're like 2 rows behind the dugout. JT Snowins have thrown me a ball. So let's raise some money for a great cause and a fun need. Support the family house. Thank you.
He took public speaking seriously. I hope you got a good grade.
I'd like to take just this 1 second more of your time. I will be back a little bit later. But I'd like to take this one, I'd like to dedicate this one in aid to David. And to all the families who the family house has so generously served. It is what we're all about, what we should be, and why we're here.